Chosen one, have you ever wondered if God forgot about you? Have you ever laid awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe, just maybe, you missed your moment, your calling, your purpose? Have you ever felt like everyone else got the memo, but somehow yours got lost in the mail? Listen to me carefully. I don't know where you are right now. Maybe you're sitting in that same worn chair where you've prayed 1,000 desperate prayers. Maybe you're in your kitchen, coffee getting cold, wondering what the hell happened to all those dreams you used to carry. Maybe you're lying in bed, unable to sleep, because something deep in your spirit is stirring. But if this message found you today, if these words are hitting your ears right now, it is not by accident. Because 53 hours ago, while you were sleeping, God set an appointment with your name on it. An appointment that will split your life into 2 parts. Everything that happened before Tuesday and everything that happens after. God set Tuesday as your turning point. Now I know what you're thinking. Tuesday? That's just another day. But beloved, that's exactly how God works. He hides earthquakes in ordinary moments. He wraps miracles in mundane packaging. And right now, while you're listening to these words, the spiritual realm is already preparing for what's about to unfold in your life. You see, there's something the enemy doesn't want you to know. For months, maybe years, you've been in divine preparation. Every disappointment, every closed door, every night you cried yourself to sleep. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. You've been in God's pressure cooker, and Tuesday is when you emerge transformed. If your heart is stirring right now, if something deep in your spirit is saying yes, then write this in the comments. I believe Tuesday is mine. Don't hesitate, don't overthink it. Let your faith speak. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel forgotten in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your time, your attention, your open heart, it all matters. And if this message is already stirring something in your soul, go ahead and hit that notification bell, because what I'm about to share will shake the very foundations of how you see your future. Tuesday is coming, chosen one, and you are not ready for what God is about to do. Why does God make you wait when your hair is already gray? Why does He whisper not yet when your body is telling you time's running out? Why does divine timing feel like divine cruelty when you're 73 years old and still praying the same prayer you whispered at 33? Listen to me, beloved. I need you to understand something that will either break your heart wide open or heal it completely. The waiting, the endless, soul-crushing waiting. It's not because God forgot about you. It's because what He's preparing for you is so magnificent, so precisely timed, that one day early would ruin it, one day late would miss it. But right now, in this moment, I know you don't feel magnificent. You feel forgotten. You feel like maybe, just maybe, you've been praying to an empty sky. Let me tell you about Eleanor, 82 years old, living in a tiny apartment in Queens. Every single night, for 40 years, she kneels beside her bed with arthritic knees and prays over photos of her children, her son who won't speak to her daughter battling addiction, her grandson she's never met. And every night the same whispered question breaks her heart. God, when? When will my family heal? When will my children come home? When will this pain stop echoing through my bloodline? Eleanor doesn't know it yet, but Tuesday changes everything for her family. But she's had to wait 40 years to see it. 40 years of wondering if her prayers were bouncing off the ceiling. You see, waiting on God feels like walking through fog. You know you're moving forward. Your faith tells you you're moving forward. But you can't see your feet. You can't see the path. You can't see what's coming. All you can do is keep walking and trust that somewhere in that grey mist, God is orchestrating a miracle. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. The longer the wait, the greater the breakthrough. The deeper the preparation, the more stunning the revelation. Look at Anna, 84 years old. Luke tells us she never left the temple but worshipped night and day, fasting and praying. 84! Can you imagine? Decades of waiting. Decades of wondering if she'd die before seeing the Messiah. And then one ordinary Tuesday morning, Mary and Joseph walk in with baby Jesus, and Anna's entire life makes sense. Every year of waiting, every prayer in the darkness, every moment she wondered if God had forgotten her, it all crystallized in one divine moment. The scripture says, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. She became the herald of the very miracle she'd waited her whole life to see. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. 40 years! Can you picture it? An 80-year-old man wondering if his purpose had passed him by, if his calling had expired, if maybe God should choose someone younger, stronger, more qualified. But God said, Moses, I need you at 80 because what I'm about to do requires the wisdom of your waiting. And Sarah, dear Sarah, 90 years old when Isaac was born. 90. She'd given up. She'd laughed at the very idea. Her body had surrendered to impossibility. But God said, Sarah, I need you to be 90, because when this child comes, no one, not even the devil himself, will be able to claim this was anything but divine intervention. Do you see the pattern? God's greatest miracles require his longest preparations. But I know what you're thinking right now. I can feel it through the screen. You're thinking, but what if I run out of time? What if Tuesday comes too late? What if God's timing doesn't align with my timeline? Let me speak directly to that fear, that cold, gripping fear that keeps you awake at night. The fear that maybe, just maybe, you missed your moment. That maybe the train already left the station and you weren't on it. Here's the truth that will either terrify you or set you free. God's timing isn't about your age. It's about his purpose. He's not working around your limitations. He's working through them. Your gray hair isn't a deadline. It's a crown. Your wrinkles aren't evidence of wasted time. They're proof you've survived everything the enemy threw at you, and you're still standing, still believing, still praying, still hoping. The grandmother in Ohio, who's been praying for her family's salvation for 30 years, God heard every word. The widower in Florida who's been asking God for one more chance at love, every tear is recorded. The retired teacher in Michigan who's been waiting for confirmation of her calling, the answer is coming. But here's what breaks my heart. Some of you are ready to give up. Some of you are thinking, maybe this Tuesday thing isn't for me. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe my season has passed. Stop, right there. Stop. Your season hasn't passed. Your season is just beginning. Because what God is about to do on Tuesday requires someone who's been tested by time, someone who's been refined by waiting, someone who's been purified by pain. He needs someone like you. If you've waited, and waited, and waited until you thought your faith might break, type "I'm still standing" in the comments right now. Let heaven see it. Let others see they're not alone in this sacred struggle of divine timing. Because Tuesday isn't just another day for you. Tuesday is the day your waiting finally makes sense. The day your preparation meets your purpose. The day God looks at you and says, now is your time. But what exactly happens on Tuesday that makes it different from every other day you've endured? You know what breaks my heart? It's not the big tragedies that make the headlines. It's the quiet desperation I see in the eyes of God's people who've been waiting so long they've forgotten how to hope. You've been there, haven't you? Standing at your kitchen window, watching the world spin by, wondering if God even remembers your address. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. God doesn't just work in any timing. He works in specific timing. Divine appointments aren't random, they're surgical, they're precise. And beloved, your Tuesday isn't just another day on the calendar. Not just any Tuesday. This Tuesday, let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. While you've been questioning God's silence, He's been orchestrating a symphony. Every delay you've endured, every door that slammed shut, every prayer that seemed to bounce off the ceiling, it was all positioning you for this exact moment, this exact day, this exact hour. You see, God doesn't operate on our frantic microwave mentality. He operates on what the Bible calls set times. Psalm 102:13 declares, "You will arise and have mercy on Zion, for the time to favor her, yes, the set time, has come." Did you catch that? Not just a time, the set time, the appointed time, the time that was written in heaven's calendar before you took your first breath. Not just any Tuesday, this Tuesday. Now, I want to tell you about Margaret. She's a 8-year-old widow from Allentown, Pennsylvania. For 15 years, 15 long, lonely years, she sat at her kitchen table every Tuesday morning with her journal. Same routine, same prayer. God, when will my time come? When will you remember me? Week after week, month after month, year after year. The journal pages filled with tears and the same desperate question. Her friends started avoiding her calls. Her children, grown and busy with their own lives, barely visited. She felt invisible, forgotten, like God had moved on to more important people with more important problems. But here's what Margaret didn't know. Every single Tuesday she poured her heart out to God. He was preparing something extraordinary. Not just any Tuesday. This Tuesday, 3 weeks ago, on what seemed like another ordinary Tuesday, Margaret opened her mailbox to find a letter that would change everything. Her son David, the one who'd been deployed overseas for 2 years, was coming home. Not next month, not next week. That very afternoon. His tour was ending early, and he'd arranged a surprise homecoming. But that wasn't all. 20 minutes after reading that letter, her phone rang. Pastor Williams from the local Methodist church was calling. "Margaret," he said, "I know this might sound crazy, but we've been praying about who should lead our new prayer ministry. Your name keeps coming up. Every time we pray, we hear the same thing. Margaret Thompson, would you consider it?" 15 years of waiting, 15 years of Tuesday morning tears, and in one Tuesday afternoon, everything shifted. Her son was coming home, her purpose was revealed, her season of obscurity was over. Not just any Tuesday, this Tuesday. You think that's coincidence? You think that's luck? No, beloved. That's the God who told Joseph in prison that his interpretation of Pharaoh's dream would change not just his life, but the course of nations. Genesis 41 tells us that in a single day, 24 hours, Joseph went from forgotten prisoner to second in command of Egypt, from forgotten to favored, from hidden to honored. The same God who elevated Joseph in a day is the same God who's been preparing your Tuesday for years. While you were sleeping, He was working. While you were crying, He was creating. While you were questioning, He was orchestrating. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't just about Margaret. This isn't just about Joseph. This is about you, right now, right here, this moment. How many Tuesdays have you wasted believing that nothing would change? How many times have you looked in the mirror and said, "Maybe I missed my chance"? How many nights have you gone to bed feeling like God forgot to include you in His plan? Stop it. Stop that lie right now. The reason your heart is racing as you listen to these words is because your spirit recognizes truth. Deep down, in that place where doubt can't reach, you know something's different about this Tuesday. You felt it when you woke up this morning. You felt it when this video found you. You feel it right now. Not just any Tuesday. This Tuesday. Here's what I need you to do right now. And I'm not asking. I'm telling you with the authority of someone who's walked with God for 5 decades. I need you to write today's date somewhere. on a piece of paper, in the margin of your Bible, on the back of an envelope, doesn't matter where. Write it down. Now say it out loud. Say the date. Say it like you mean it. This Tuesday isn't casual. It's coded with heaven's fingerprint. It's marked with divine intention. It's pregnant with possibility. Because here's what's about to happen in your life. The thing you stopped believing for is about to show up. The breakthrough you've been praying for is about to break through. The miracle you've been waiting for has been waiting for this Tuesday. Not just any Tuesday. This Tuesday. But if you think this is as deep as it gets, if you think this is the extent of what God wants to reveal to you today, then you haven't been paying attention. Because what I'm about to share next will explain why every single thing in your life had to happen exactly the way it did. Why every heartbreak was actually a setup. Why every delay was actually divine strategy. The question isn't whether God's going to move in your life. The question is, are you ready for what He's about to do? You want to know why your life has been so damn hard. You want to know why you faced rejection after rejection, betrayal after betrayal, loss after loss. You want to know why you've buried loved ones, watched dreams crumble, felt your body break down when others seemed to glide through life untouched. Here's the truth they don't teach in Sunday school. The devil wasn't attacking your past. He was terrified of your Tuesday. Listen to me, chosen one. Every single battle you've endured, every sleepless night you've cried until your pillow was soaked, every time you looked in the mirror and wondered if God had abandoned you. That wasn't random suffering. That was strategic warfare. The enemy saw something in your future that made him desperate to destroy you before you could reach it. Think about Job. The man lost everything, his children, his wealth, his health. His own wife told him to curse God and die. But here's what most people miss. God didn't allow Job's suffering because Job was weak. He allowed it because Job was chosen. The devil saw Job's destiny and launched a preemptive strike. Sound familiar? You've been living in Job's story, haven't you? The isolation, the confusion, the silence from heaven while hell unleashed everything it had against you. But Job's story didn't end in the ash heap, and neither does yours. The devil wasn't attacking your past. He was terrified of your Tuesday. Look at David. The prophet Samuel anointed him as the future king of Israel when he was just a shepherd boy. But what happened next? Did David immediately move into the palace? Number. He spent years running for his life, hiding in caves, eating scraps, sleeping on cold stone. Why? Because the moment heaven declared his destiny, hell declared war. You know that feeling, don't you? That moment when you first felt God's calling on your life, when you first sensed you were meant for something more, and then everything fell apart. Friends abandoned you. Family questioned your sanity. Doors slammed shut so hard they nearly broke your nose. That wasn't coincidence. That was confirmation. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on nobodies. He only fights this hard when he knows he's about to lose something big. But here's where it gets personal. How many nights have you laid awake wondering if you're losing your mind? How many times have you questioned if God really called you, or if you just imagined it all? How many times have you felt like giving up, like maybe everyone else was right and you were just delusional? That doubt? That's not your weakness talking. That's the enemy's last desperate attempt to make you quit 3 yards from the goal line. The devil wasn't attacking your past. He was terrified of your Tuesday. Jeremiah 1-5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." Before your first breath, before your first heartbreak, before your first disappointment, God already saw Tuesday coming. He saw what you would become, what you would accomplish, how you would impact eternity. And the moment that purpose was written in heaven's ledger, your name was put on hell's hit list. Every attack you've survived, every setback you've endured, every time you got knocked down and somehow found the strength to get back up, that wasn't just resilience. That was divine protection, keeping you alive for Tuesday. You think those panic attacks at 2 a.m. were random. You think that depression that felt like a blanket of concrete was just bad luck. You think losing that job, that relationship, that house was just poor timing. No, beloved. You were being forged in the fire, because what God is about to give you requires someone who can't be easily broken. Diamonds are made in darkness. So were you. Think about it. If your calling was small, if your purpose was insignificant, if your Tuesday was going to be ordinary, why would the enemy work so hard to stop you? Why would he invest so much time, so much energy, so much demonic attention on destroying one person? Because he knows something you're just beginning to remember. You're not ordinary. You never were. You're a weapon forged in heaven's armory, and Tuesday is when God hands you to yourself. The devil wasn't attacking your past. He was terrified of your Tuesday. Every scar on your heart is proof of your importance. Every tear you've cried is evidence of your election. Every time you wanted to quit but didn't, that wasn't just stubbornness. That was your spirit, recognizing something your mind couldn't understand. Tuesday was coming. You survived the cancer, you survived the divorce, you survived the bankruptcy, you survived the betrayal, you survived the addiction, you survived the depression. You survived watching your children make choices that broke your heart. You survived burying your parents. You survived it all. And here's the miraculous truth. The fact that you're still breathing, still watching, still hoping, that's not just luck. That's not just good medicine or good therapy or good friends. That's proof. Tuesday didn't find you. Heaven summoned you to it. The enemy threw everything he had at you, and you're still here, scarred but standing, wounded but walking, broken but believing. That's not survival, beloved. That's supernatural preservation. Say it with me, out loud, even if you're alone. God, I survived for Tuesday. But here's what's about to blow your mind. All that pain, all that struggle, all those nights you prayed for God to just let you die, it wasn't just about getting you to Tuesday. It was about preparing you for what Tuesday will demand of you. Because what God is about to release in your life isn't just a blessing. It's a responsibility that requires someone who has been tested by fire and found faithful. Here's what breaks my heart about the church today. We've been taught to expect God to show up like a Hollywood blockbuster, thunder, lightning, and orchestras playing in the background. But that's not how the Almighty works, beloved. That's not how He's ever worked. When Elijah was running for his life, hiding in that cave on Mount Horeb, desperate for God to speak, there was a great wind that split the mountains. But God wasn't in the wind. There was an earthquake that shook the ground beneath his feet. But God wasn't in the earthquake. There was fire that could have consumed everything. But God wasn't in the fire either. And then, after all the noise died down, came a still, small voice. 1 Kings 19:12 tells us that's where God was. In the whisper, in the gentle breeze, in the quiet moment when everything else fell silent. Dear chosen one, Tuesday will not knock on your door like a loud guest demanding attention. It will slip into your house like morning light, soft, gradual, but absolutely undeniable. You won't miss it if you're paying attention, but you will miss it if you're waiting for fireworks. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. How many divine appointments have you already missed because you were looking for the spectacular instead of noticing the sacred? I'm talking to those of you who've been praying for breakthrough for years, decades maybe. You've been crying out to heaven, God, where are you? Why won't you answer me? But what if? What if He's been answering all along, and you've been listening for thunder when He's been whispering peace? Tuesday's breakthrough won't come with fanfare. It will come with clarity. It will come when that confusion that's been clouding your mind for months suddenly lifts like morning fog. You'll wake up and somehow, inexplicably, you'll know what to do next. Not because someone told you, not because you figured it out, but because God whispered the answer into your spirit while you were finally still enough to hear. Some of you are going to experience this through dreams. Not weird, symbolic dreams that leave you more confused than before. I'm talking about dreams so vivid, so clear, that you wake up with instructions written on your heart. Dreams where departed loved ones visit you with messages of encouragement. Dreams where you see yourself walking through doors you thought were permanently closed. Others will get unexpected phone calls. That phone will ring on Tuesday, and the voice on the other end will be someone you haven't heard from in years. Someone with an opportunity, someone with an answer, someone with exactly what you've been praying for. And you'll know deep in your bones that this isn't coincidence. This is divine orchestration. But here's what's going to shock you the most. Forgotten promises are about to be revived. Remember that dream you had when you were younger? The one you buried under decades of disappointment and being realistic. Tuesday is going to breathe life back into that dead dream. It's going to rise up in your spirit, like Lazarus walking out of that tomb. You see, God doesn't forget his promises the way we do. Isaiah 55:11 reminds us that his word never returns void. Those dreams he planted in your heart 40, 50, 60 years ago, they weren't child's play. They were prophetic seeds. And Tuesday is harvest time. The most beautiful sign you'll recognize is peace replacing confusion. For months, maybe years, you felt like you're living in spiritual fog, questions without answers, doors without keys, prayers that seem to bounce off the ceiling. But on Tuesday, that confusion will shatter like glass hitting concrete. You'll suddenly understand why certain doors had to close. You'll see why certain people had to leave your life. You'll comprehend why you had to walk through that valley of disappointment. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It wasn't delay, it was divine timing. But listen to me carefully, chosen one. This breakthrough requires something from you. It requires you to be still, not busy, not running around trying to make things happen. Still. On Tuesday, I need you to protect your stillness like it's worth $1 million. Because it is. Don't crowd your day with meaningless activities. Don't fill every moment with noise and distraction. Create space for God to whisper. Create room for the sacred to unfold. Turn off the television. Put down the phone. Cancel the unnecessary appointments. Tuesday is not a day for ordinary business. Tuesday is a day for divine business. And divine business requires divine attention. Some of you are already feeling resistance to this. Your mind is saying, I can't just stop everything for one day. I have responsibilities. I have obligations. But let me ask you this. How's handling everything yourself been working out for you so far? The very fact that you're watching this message right now tells me you're ready for something different. You're tired of the struggle. You're exhausted from carrying burdens that were never meant for your shoulders. You're ready to let God be God in your life. Tuesday is your permission slip to stop performing and start receiving. To stop hustling and start trusting. To stop making noise and start making room for the miraculous. But here's what terrifies the enemy about your Tuesday breakthrough. It's not just about you. When God moves in your life, it creates a ripple effect that touches generations. Your breakthrough becomes their breakthrough. Your healing becomes their healing. Your restoration becomes their hope. This is why the resistance has been so fierce. This is why the delays seemed so long. This is why the enemy fought so hard to keep you discouraged. Because he knows that when God finally says, now over your life, the shockwaves will be felt in realms you can't even see. So I'm asking you right now, are you ready to stop waiting for the earthquake and start listening for the whisper? But here's what breaks my heart, chosen one. Here's what keeps me awake at night, praying for souls like yours. God is ready. The question that's tearing through heaven right now is this. Are you? I need to tell you about Harold. 73 years old, sitting in the same pew he'd occupied for 47 years. Every Sunday, same seat, third row from the back. Every year, when the pastor called for mission volunteers, Harold would lean over to his wife and whisper, maybe next year, Martha. Maybe next year I'll have the courage. Maybe next year he'd start that ministry for veterans. Maybe next year he'd write that book about his father's war stories. Maybe next year he'd finally answer that calling that had been knocking on his heart since he was 25 years old. Harold died last Tuesday, never made it to next year. His funeral was packed. People shared beautiful stories. But you know what haunts me? It wasn't what Harold did that brought tears to everyone's eyes. It was what he could have done. The ministry that never started, the book that was never written, the lives that were never touched because Harold chose comfort over calling. Harold's tragedy wasn't sin, beloved. It was hesitation. And right now, as you're listening to these words, I can feel some of you shifting uncomfortably because you recognize yourself in Harold's story. You've got your own maybe next year list, don't you? Maybe next year you'll start that prayer group. Maybe next year you'll volunteer at the shelter. Maybe next year you'll have that difficult conversation with your children about faith. But here's the truth that's going to shatter every excuse you've been holding on to. God didn't set Tuesday as your turning point so you could schedule it for Wednesday. Listen to what Queen Esther's uncle told her when she hesitated at her divine appointment. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. Read that again. If you remain silent, Esther had a choice. She could step into her calling or watch God use someone else. The kingdom would be saved either way, but she would miss her moment, her window, her divine appointment. How many of you have been treating Tuesday like it's a suggestion instead of a summons? Let me paint you another picture. Matthew chapter 25. 10 young women waiting for the bridegroom. 5 were ready, 5 were not. When the bridegroom finally arrived, the prepared ones went into the wedding feast. But the others, they missed it. Not because they weren't invited, not because they weren't worthy. They missed it because when their moment came, they weren't ready. Those who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. The door was shut. Do you hear that? The door was shut. Not cracked open, not left ajar for latecomers, shut. Because divine timing doesn't wait for our convenience. And here's where I need to get real with you, because your soul depends on hearing this truth. You've been blaming God for the delay. You've been wondering why your breakthrough is taking so long. You've been questioning His timing, His plan, His love for you. But what if I told you that God didn't delay your blessing? What if the holdup isn't on His end? God didn't delay your blessing. You paused your obedience. Let that sink in. You paused your obedience. How many times has God whispered a direction and you said, "Let me think about it"? How many times has He opened a door and you said, "Maybe when I'm more prepared"? How many times has He given you a green light and you asked for a yellow one instead? We treat God's assignments like Netflix recommendations, something we'll get to when we feel like it. But beloved, the kingdom of heaven isn't streaming on demand. It's live television, and if you miss your moment, it's gone. I can feel some of you getting defensive right now. But I wasn't ready. I needed more training, more money, more confidence. Stop, just stop. Moses wasn't ready when God called him from the burning bush. Gideon wasn't ready when the angel called him a mighty warrior. David wasn't ready when Samuel anointed him king. Mary wasn't ready when Gabriel announced she'd carry the Messiah. God doesn't call the equipped, He equips the called. And He's been trying to equip you for Tuesday, but you keep rescheduling the appointment. Here's what terrifies me for some of you. Tuesday is coming whether you're ready or not. The question isn't whether God will move. The question is whether you'll be aligned when He does. Because here's what happened to the 5 unprepared virgins. They didn't lose their salvation. They lost their opportunity. They didn't go to hell. They went home. They lived ordinary lives, while others lived extraordinary ones. Is that what you want? To live the rest of your days knowing you had a divine appointment and you showed up late? If you know there's something you've been delaying, some calling you've been postponing, some obedience you've been procrastinating, write this in the comments right now. No more delay. I'm ready. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just write it. Because your Tuesday breakthrough is waiting on your Monday surrender. But that's not even the most shocking part of what God is about to reveal to you about Tuesday. Now listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to share will shatter everything you thought you knew about divine timing. You think God is random. You think your breakthrough is just luck. You think Tuesday was picked out of a hat. Beloved, that's the biggest lie the enemy has ever sold you. God doesn't roll dice with your destiny. Heaven operates on spiritual laws more precise than gravity, more reliable than sunrise. And for 73 years, these laws have been working in your favor, orchestrating every detail of your life toward this one moment. Let me teach you something that will change how you see everything. The first law, the law of appointed time. Habakkuk 2-3 says, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time. It will surely come. It will not tarry." You see that word appointed? In Hebrew, it's moed, a divine assignment, a sacred meeting time set by God himself before the foundations of the world. Tuesday isn't random. It's your moed, your divinely appointed moment that's been circled on heaven's calendar since before you drew your first breath. But here's what breaks my heart. How many of you have given up on your appointed time? How many of you have looked at your age, looked at your circumstances and whispered, "It's too late for me"? That's not faith talking, that's fear, and fear doesn't understand God's calendar. The second law, the law of sudden shift. Isaiah 60-22 declares, "A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time." Did you catch that word, hasten? When God's appointed time arrives, everything accelerates. What took years of waiting happens in moments. What seemed impossible becomes inevitable. This is why your Tuesday won't feel gradual. It'll feel like a supernatural explosion. Think about Sarah at 90 years old. Think about Moses at 80. Think about Anna, the prophetess who waited 84 years in the temple. When God's hasten moment came, their entire lives pivoted in an instant. But here's the question that should terrify you. What if you're not watching? What if you're so focused on yesterday's disappointments that you miss tomorrow's deliverance? The third law, the law of divine pattern recognition. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven." God works in patterns, beloved. Seasons, cycles, and right now, you're transitioning from your season of preparation into your season of manifestation. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your spirit, that sense that something is shifting. That's not anxiety, that's anticipation. Your spirit recognizes the pattern before your mind catches up. Imagine your life as a massive cosmic clock. For decades, the gears have been turning silently, preparing, positioning, aligning, and Tuesday is when you hear the click, the sound of destiny's gear finally engaging. The moment when all those years of preparation suddenly make sense. But here's what will destroy you if you're not careful. Hesitation. When that gear moves, you must move with it. When heaven opens the door, you don't knock first. You walk through. The tragedy of the appointed time is not that it doesn't come. The tragedy is that it comes, and we're not ready. We second guess, we hesitate. We wait for a better time, a clearer sign, a safer moment. There is no safer moment than God's appointed time. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Tuesday isn't just another day you'll survive. It's the day you'll look back on and say, "That's when everything changed. That's when my real life began." The spiritual laws are already in motion. The appointed time is set. The sudden shift is prepared. The divine pattern is completing itself. The question isn't whether Tuesday will be significant. The question is whether you'll be awake enough to recognize it when it comes. Because, beloved, while you've been waiting for God to move, God has been waiting for you to be ready. And something tells me, something deep in my spirit is screaming, that ready or not, Tuesday is coming. And when it arrives, Everything you thought you knew about your limits, your age, your circumstances, is about to be rewritten by the hand of the Almighty. The clock is ticking, chosen one. Can you hear it? Now let me tell you something that's going to shatter every lie the world has whispered in your ear about your age, your time, your purpose. They told you 65 was the finish line. They handed you a gold watch and said, "Thanks for playing, game over." They convinced you that wrinkles meant weakness, that grey hair meant you were supposed to fade into the background, become invisible, irrelevant. But what if I told you that everything you've been told about aging is a demonic deception designed to steal your greatest season? What if I told you that the enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your best days are behind you, because he knows that your most powerful days are actually ahead of you? Listen to me, beloved. You are not a dying flame. You are a fire about to pass the torch. And the enemy is terrified of what happens when you realize that. The world looks at your 70-year-old hands and sees frailty, but God looks at those same hands and sees the calluses of faithfulness. He sees the scars of sacrifice. He sees hands that have prayed through midnight hours, hands that have held broken hearts, hands that have worked miracles in secret places. You think your age disqualifies you. Let me take you to the Word of God and show you something that will blow your mind. Moses was 80 years old, 80, when God called him to deliver an entire nation out of bondage. Not 25, not 45, 80. The world would have put Moses in a retirement home, but God put him in front of Pharaoh and said, "Now we begin." Anna the prophetess was 84 when she encountered the Christ child in the temple. She had been waiting, watching, believing for decades. The world saw an old woman, but God saw a woman whose spiritual eyes were so sharp, so clear, that she could recognize the Messiah when everyone else walked right past him. And Caleb. Oh, Caleb makes me want to shout. At 85 years old, when every logical bone in his body should have been crying for a rocking chair, he stood before Joshua and declared, "Give me this mountain, not give me a pension plan, not give me a quiet corner to fade away. Give me this mountain, give me the giants, give me the battle." Do you hear what I'm saying to you right now? Age is not disqualification. Age is qualification. You have been in God's training camp for 7, 8, maybe 9 decades. You have survived heartbreaks that would have destroyed weaker souls. You have weathered storms that would have sunk lesser ships. You have accumulated wisdom that money cannot buy and experience that seminaries cannot teach. And now, on this Tuesday that God has marked for your turning point, He's looking at you and saying, "Now you're ready. Now you're seasoned. Now you're dangerous." But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what makes the angels weep. So many of you are sitting in your living rooms, watching life happen to other people, convinced that your race is over when God is standing at the starting line with a new bib number, waiting for you to step up. You're not just someone's grandparent. You're not just someone who used to be something. You are a spiritual general that heaven has kept hidden until now. You are a secret weapon that the kingdom of darkness hoped would never be activated. You are a walking library of God's faithfulness, and this Tuesday God is saying, it's time to open the books. The enemy wants you to believe that your dreams expired with your youth. But dreams don't have expiration dates. Only excuses do. The vision God planted in your heart at 20 is still viable at 70, because the God who planted it doesn't age, doesn't weaken, doesn't change his mind. Moses didn't peak at 30, Anna didn't peak at 40, Caleb didn't peak at 50. They peaked when they said yes to God's impossible assignment at an impossible age. What mountain has God been whispering to your heart? What dream have you buried under the weight of, "I'm too old"? What calling have you postponed because you thought you missed your window? Let me prophesy to you right now. Your best fruit is still in bloom. The seeds you planted in your youth are about to produce a harvest in your golden years that will astound heaven and confound hell. This Tuesday isn't about retirement, it's about refirement. God is about to reignite something in you that the world thought was extinct. He's about to breathe on embers that have been smoldering for decades and turn them into a blazing inferno that will light up your family, your community, your generation. You think you're winding down. God says you're just hitting your stride. You think you're past your prime. God says you're entering your purpose. Right now, I want you to stand up if you can. I want you to look in the mirror and declare with every ounce of faith in your being, my best fruit is still in bloom. God is not finished with me. This Tuesday is my turning point, and I will not retreat into irrelevance. I will rise into my destiny. Because if Moses can face Pharaoh at 80, if Anna can recognize the Messiah at 84, if Caleb can conquer mountains at 85, then you beautiful, weathered, wise warrior of faith, you can do whatever God is calling you to do on this Tuesday. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you answer when He calls your name? You know what nobody tells you about saying yes to God? The moment you do, hell breaks loose. I'm talking about the kind of warfare that makes you question if you heard Him right. The kind that makes you wonder if maybe you should have just stayed small, stayed safe, stayed invisible. Because the attacks that come after obedience, they're not random. They're strategic. They're personal. And they're designed to make you quit before you even start. Why does the blessing seem to come with backlash? Let me show you something that'll blow your mind. Jesus gets baptized, the heavens open, the Father speaks, the Spirit descends like a dove. It's the most beautiful confirming moment in human history. And what happens next? Immediately, not eventually, not after a nice vacation, immediately, the Spirit drives him into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil for 40 days. Wait, what? That doesn't make sense, does it? You'd think after such a powerful affirmation, Jesus would be escorted to a palace, not a desert. You'd think he'd get a celebration, not a spiritual cage fight with Satan himself. But that's the pattern, beloved. That's God's blueprint for every chosen one. David gets anointed as the future king of Israel. Samuel pours that oil over his head, and the Spirit of the Lord rushes upon him. This shepherd boy is now God's chosen vessel. And what's his reward? He has to run for his life. King Saul, consumed with jealousy and rage, spends years hunting David like a wild animal. David hides in caves, lives off scraps, sleeps with one eye open. The anointing didn't bring him a throne, it brought him a target. Why does the blessing seem to come with backlash? Here's what's happening in the spiritual realm that your eyes can't see. The moment you say yes to your calling, the moment you step into your purpose, the moment you start walking in your anointing, you become a threat. Not to people, to principalities, to powers, to the rulers of darkness in high places. You see, when you were living below your potential, when you were settling for less than God's best, when you were hiding your light under a bushel, the enemy left you alone. Why? Because you weren't dangerous. You were neutralized. You were contained. But the second you started believing God's promises about your life, the second you began to walk in authority, the second you started operating in your gifts, that's when you showed up on hell's radar. Think about it. Every major move of God in your life has been followed by major opposition. You got saved, then your family turned against you. You started tithing, then unexpected bills showed up. You began praying for others. Then your own problems multiplied. You stepped into ministry, then your marriage got attacked. You decided to trust God with your finances. Then you lost your job. Why does the blessing seem to come with backlash? Because the moment you said yes to destiny, you became a threat to darkness. The enemy knows something about you that you're still figuring out. He knows the damage you're going to do to his kingdom. He knows the souls you're going to win. He knows the generational curses you're going to break. He knows the businesses you're going to build that will fund the gospel. He knows the children you're going to raise who will change the world. So he hits you early. He hits you hard. He hits you where it hurts most. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. This is why Paul could say in 2 Corinthians 12:10, "When I am weak, then I am strong." This is why James could write, "Count it all joy when you fall into various trials." They understood something that most Christians miss. The intensity of the attack is directly proportional to the magnitude of your assignment. The bigger your calling, the bigger the opposition, the greater your potential impact, the greater the resistance. The more territory you're destined to take from darkness, the harder darkness will fight to keep you from taking it. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every attack is actually confirmation. Every battle is actually proof. Every hit you take is heaven's way of saying, you're on the right track. You think the devil wastes time attacking nobodies? You think he sends his best demons to torment people who don't matter? No. He reserves his fiercest assaults for those who pose the greatest threat to his agenda. So when you're getting hit from every direction, when problems are coming at you faster than you can solve them, when it feels like you're in a spiritual blender, don't you dare interpret that as God's disapproval. Don't you dare think that means you missed his will. The war you're in right now is not evidence that you're off track. It's evidence that you're on track. It's evidence that you're moving towards something so significant, so powerful, so kingdom-advancing that hell itself is nervous. Moses was called to deliver Israel. Then Pharaoh made their slavery worse. Nehemiah was called to rebuild the walls. Then his enemies conspired to stop the work. Esther was positioned to save her people. Then Haman signed their death warrant. The pattern is always the same. Divine assignment. Demonic assault. But here's the part that'll change everything for you. Every single one of them won. Moses led the Exodus. Nehemiah rebuilt the walls in 52 days. Esther saved her nation. David eventually took the throne. Jesus rose from the dead. The attack is not your end, it's your evidence. The warfare is not your defeat, it's your confirmation. If you've been hit, but you're still here, write this in the comments. I've been hit, but I'm still here. Because that's not weakness, beloved. That's warfare. And warriors don't quit when they get wounded. They fight harder. The question isn't whether you're going to face opposition when you say yes to God. The question is, when the battle comes, and it will come, are you going to stand your ground, or are you going to surrender the very thing God called you to possess? Tuesday is your turning point. But first, you need to understand what you're turning from. Tuesday felt like sunrise, but Wednesday feels like fog. Let me tell you about Margaret. She's 73, lives alone in Queens, been praying for her grandson's addiction for 2 years straight. Tuesday morning, she gets the call. He's clean, he's checking into rehab. He tells her, "Grandma, I heard God speak to me last night." She falls to her knees in that narrow hallway, tears streaming, thanking Jesus for finally showing up. Tuesday was her miracle day, her turning point. She felt it in her bones. This was what we talked about. This was God setting Tuesday as her breakthrough moment. But Wednesday she wakes up to a different reality. The rehab center calls. They need $3,000 up front. Her social security check won't cover it. Her daughter hasn't spoken to her in months. The apartment upstairs is flooding into her ceiling, and the super won't answer his phone. By noon, she's sitting in that same hallway where she praised God just 24 hours earlier, and she's asking the question that's probably burning in your chest right now: did I imagine it all? You see, here's what nobody tells you about divine turning points. Here's what they don't preach from those polished pulpits with their perfect lighting and orchestrated music. After every supernatural Tuesday comes a very natural Wednesday. After every Red Sea moment comes a wilderness wandering. After every mountaintop experience comes a valley that feels darker than anything you've ever walked through. And that's when the enemy whispers his favorite lie. It wasn't real. You made it up. God doesn't care about you that much. But let me tell you something that will shatter that lie forever. When Jesus received the ultimate confirmation of his identity, when the heavens opened and the Father's voice declared, "This is my beloved Son," what happened next? Matthew 4:1 says, "Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil." Read that again. LED, by the Spirit, into the wilderness. The same Spirit that confirmed his calling led him into his testing. Your Wednesday wilderness isn't proof that Tuesday was fake. It's proof that Tuesday was so real, so threatening to the kingdom of darkness, that hell itself has declared war on your breakthrough. Think about it. Margaret's grandson getting clean doesn't just affect him. It breaks a generational curse. It saves a bloodline. It proves to that family that prayer still works, that God still moves, that redemption is still possible. You think the enemy's just going to let that slide? You think he's going to roll over and let transformation happen without a fight? The wilderness comes because the promise is real. The testing comes because the calling is legitimate. The fog comes because the sunrise was genuine. But here's where most people miss it. They think the wilderness is punishment. They think Wednesday's chaos means they did something wrong on Tuesday. They start questioning their discernment, their worthiness, their relationship with God. Listen to me carefully. The wilderness is not your punishment, it's your promotion. Every chosen one has to pass through Wednesday's fog to get to Thursday's clarity. Every promise receiver has to navigate the wilderness to reach the promised land. This isn't God being cruel. This is God being strategic, because the version of you that celebrated on Tuesday isn't strong enough to steward Thursday's blessing. The faith that got excited about the miracle isn't mature enough to maintain the miracle. You need wilderness muscles. You need testing ground tenacity. You need the kind of unshakable confidence that can only be forged in the furnace of Wednesday's confusion. Margaret doesn't know it yet, but Wednesday's financial pressure is going to introduce her to resources she never knew existed. Wednesday's family drama is going to force conversations that needed to happen years ago. Wednesday's loneliness is going to drive her so deep into prayer that she'll discover a level of intimacy with God that comfortable circumstances never could have produced. Her grandson's recovery isn't in jeopardy because of Wednesday's challenges. Her grandson's recovery is being secured by Wednesday's wilderness. And your Tuesday breakthrough, it's not evaporating in Wednesday's fog. It's being refined, strengthened, and prepared for a manifestation so powerful that it will leave no room for doubt in anyone's mind, including yours. But here's the critical part. How you handle Wednesday determines what Thursday looks like. If you retreat into self-pity, if you start believing the lies, if you let the fog convince you that the sunrise was just a mirage, then you'll stay lost in the wilderness longer than necessary. But if you remember that Jesus was LED into the wilderness, if you remember that every giant killer had to face Goliath before claiming victory, if you remember that Tuesday's promise came with Wednesday's proof requirement, then you'll walk through that fog with the confidence of someone who knows they're not lost, they're being guided. The same God who orchestrated your Tuesday breakthrough is orchestrating your Wednesday wilderness. The same divine intelligence that opened the door is now testing your grip on the key. So when the bills pile up after the blessing, when the family gets messy after the miracle, when doubt creeps in after the divine confirmation, don't you dare call it coincidence. Call it confirmation. Call it validation that what happened on Tuesday was so real, so powerful, so threatening to the status quo that the entire spiritual realm is now engaged in the battle for your future. Wednesday isn't the end of your story. It's the plot twist that makes Thursday's victory undeniable. But there's something else Wednesday reveals about you. Something that will determine not just whether you survive the wilderness, but whether you conquer it. You know what's been keeping me up at night lately? It's not the politics, it's not the economy, it's not even the state of this broken world we're living in. It's this question that's been burning in my spirit like a wildfire. Why are the most faithful people going through the most hell? Why are you going through hell? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. I need you to understand something that could change everything about how you see your current struggle. The devil doesn't waste his time on nobodies. Hell doesn't deploy its entire arsenal against people who don't matter. The enemy doesn't bring out the heavy artillery for ordinary folks living ordinary lives. But you've been under attack, haven't you? And not just any attack. We're talking about precision strikes, targeted warfare, the kind of spiritual bombing that makes you wonder if God's even paying attention anymore. Here's what I need you to grasp with every fiber of your being. The intensity of your warfare is directly proportional to the magnitude of your calling. Scripture tells us in 1 Peter 5-8 that your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. But notice, he's not prowling around looking for sheep. He's hunting for the ones who pose a threat to his kingdom. He's targeting the ones heaven has endorsed. You think it's coincidence that your marriage came under attack right when you started really seeking God. You think it's random that your finances went haywire the moment you said, "Yes, Lord," to something bigger than yourself. You think it's just bad luck that your health started failing right when you were about to step into your purpose. Wake up, beloved. This isn't punishment. This is confirmation. The very fact that hell is fighting you this hard is proof positive that heaven has something massive in store for you. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on decoys. He reserves his fiercest attacks for heaven's most dangerous weapons. And you, dear one, you are dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Think about it. David wasn't anointed king and then immediately placed on the throne. He spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves, wondering if God had forgotten his promise. But every lion he killed, every bear he faced, every giant he conquered, it was all preparation for a throne he couldn't even see yet. Joseph didn't go from the pit to the palace overnight. He went from the pit to Potiphar's house to prison to the palace. 13 years of hell, 13 years of wondering where God was. But every false accusation, every night in that dungeon, every moment of seeming abandonment was actually divine preparation for the moment when Pharaoh would say, "Can we find anyone like this man? One in whom is the Spirit of God." You didn't mess up. You're not under punishment. You're under pressure because you're under promotion. This war didn't show up to break you. It came to reveal you. Every attack has been designed to unveil the warrior that's been sleeping inside you. Every setback has been orchestrating a comeback that's going to shock the very gates of hell. Every tear you've cried has been watering the ground for a harvest that's about to explode in your life. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. He's operating on borrowed time. Tuesday, that Tuesday we talked about, it's not just your turning point, it's his deadline. The spiritual realm has been given notice, and hell knows it. Why do you think the attacks have intensified lately? Why do you think the pressure has increased? Why do you think everything that could go wrong has gone wrong all at the same time? Because Tuesday is almost here, and the enemy is in panic mode. This war didn't show up to break you. It came to reveal you. The devil has been trying to convince you that you're under God's judgment, but the truth is you're under God's preparation. He's been trying to make you believe you've disqualified yourself, but heaven's been qualifying you through every trial. You think Moses felt qualified when God called him from the burning bush? The man had a speech impediment and a murder charge. You think Gideon felt ready when the angel called him a mighty warrior while he was hiding in a winepress? You think Esther felt prepared when Mordecai told her she was born for such a time as this? They all felt exactly like you feel right now, unprepared, unworthy, and under attack. But here's the revelation that's going to change everything. God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And the very fact that you're still standing, still believing, still watching this message after everything you've been through is proof that you've been qualified through the fire. The enemy made one fatal mistake. He showed his hand too early. He revealed just how terrified he is of what you're about to become. And now you know the truth. If I wasn't chosen, I wouldn't be targeted. If my calling wasn't real, the enemy wouldn't be fighting it this hard. If my destiny wasn't dangerous to hell, the devil wouldn't be deploying this level of warfare against me. This war didn't show up to break you. It came to reveal you. Declare this with me right now. I need to hear your voice in the comments. If I wasn't chosen, I wouldn't be targeted. Don't whisper it, declare it. Let hell hear you. Let heaven witness your faith. Because Tuesday is coming, and when it arrives, the very forces that have been fighting against you are going to become the stepping stones that launch you into your destiny. But the question that's burning in my spirit right now, the question that's going to determine everything about what happens Tuesday, is this. Are you ready to stop running from the very calling that hell has been trying to abort? But here's where it gets real. Chosen one. Here's where the rubber meets the road, and your faith gets tested in ways you never imagined. Tuesday is when God speaks. But Wednesday is where you decide if you'll bleed for it. Let me take you to a garden. Not just any garden, Gethsemane. The place where divinity met humanity in the most brutal collision of destiny and choice. Jesus already knew his assignment. The Father had made it crystal clear. But knowing your calling and carrying your calling are two completely different things. Picture this. The Son of God, sweating drops of blood, falling face first into the dirt, crying out, "Father, if there's any other way." This wasn't weakness. This was the raw, honest moment when divine assignment meets human flesh. When the weight of what you asked for finally lands on your shoulders, are you willing to carry what you cried for? Because here's what nobody tells you about answered prayers, dear one. When God finally says yes to what you've been begging for, it doesn't come wrapped in silk with a pretty bow. It comes with a price tag that'll make your soul tremble. You prayed for breakthrough? Get ready to break through walls that'll leave your knuckles bloody. You prayed for healing? Prepare to walk through valleys where your faith gets tested at 3 a.m. when the pain won't stop. You prayed for purpose? Buckle up for seasons where that purpose feels heavier than anything you've ever carried. I know a woman, let's call her Sarah. For 15 years, she prayed for her son's healing. 15 years of hospital visits, of watching other families walk out whole while she carried a child who couldn't speak, couldn't walk, couldn't even recognize her face. Every Tuesday, she'd kneel by his bedside and whisper, "God, heal my boy." Then it happened. Not the way she expected, not the healing she imagined. Her son passed away. But in those final moments, he looked into her eyes and said, "Mama, I love you." 3 words she'd waited 15 years to hear. Her prayer was answered, but not in healing, in goodbye. Are you willing to carry what you cried for? Tuesday is when God sets your turning point. But Wednesday is when you discover that turning points aren't gentle curves. They're sharp, violent pivots that'll leave you dizzy, disoriented, and wondering if you're strong enough for what comes next. Here's the truth that'll shake you to your core. Every chosen one has a Gethsemane moment, every single one. Moses had it when God called him to Pharaoh's court. David had it in that cave, running from Saul. Esther had it when Mordecai said, "For such a time as this, and you, beloved, you're about to have yours." Because God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. But that equipping process, it's going to feel like you're being torn apart and rebuilt from the inside out. You've been praying for doors to open, but are you ready for the hallways of hell you'll have to walk through to reach them? You've been asking for promotion, but are you prepared for the assassination attempts on your character that come with elevation? You've been crying out for love, but can you handle the vulnerability that real love demands? The garden between Tuesday and Thursday is where your faith stops being theoretical and becomes blood, sweat, and tears real. It's where God will provide transforms from a nice church saying into the only thing standing between you and complete breakdown. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every chosen one who made it to their destiny had to bleed in their garden first. Every breakthrough is preceded by a breakdown. Every resurrection requires a death. Look at Jesus again. In Gethsemane, he could have walked away. He could have said, "Father, this is too much. Find someone else." But he didn't. You know what he said instead? "Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." That word, nevertheless, it's the hinge point of human history. It's the moment when divine assignment overcame human hesitation. It's the breath between fear and faith, between retreat and advance, between ordinary and extraordinary. Your nevertheless moment is coming, chosen one, when everything in your flesh is screaming, run, but your spirit is whispering, stay. When the calling feels heavier than your strength can bear, but somehow you find the grace to say, God, if this is what it takes, I'll carry it. Are you willing to carry what you cried for? Because I need you to understand something that most Christians won't tell you. The weight of answered prayer can crush you if you're not prepared for it. The responsibility of breakthrough can break you if you don't understand what you're signing up for. But here's the promise hidden in the pain. The same God who watched his son sweat blood in that garden was the same God who rolled away the stone 3 days later. The Garden of Agony becomes the birthplace of resurrection. Wednesday is your testing ground. It's where your faith gets refined in the fire of real circumstances, real pressure, real consequences. It's where you discover whether you want the blessing or the blesser, whether you're in this for what God can do or for who God is. So I'm asking you right now, as your heart pounds and your spirit stirs, when your Tuesday turning point leads you into your Wednesday garden, will you stay? When the assignment gets heavy and the calling gets costly, will you carry it anyway? Write this in the comments if it's you. I'll carry the call, even if it's heavy. Because what happens in your garden determines what happens in your glory. Chosen one. Before you close this video and walk back into your Tuesday, I need you to remember 3 things that could change everything. First, God set Tuesday as your turning point, not because you earned it, not because you're perfect, but because he saw something in you that even you don't see yet. That appointment he made with your destiny, it's still active, it's still waiting, and no amount of delay, disappointment, or doubt can cancel what heaven has scheduled. Second, the garden between Tuesday and Thursday isn't your punishment, it's your preparation. Every tear you've cried, every sleepless night you've endured, every moment you've felt forgotten, it's all been building something inside you that can't be shaken. You're not falling apart, you're falling into place. And third, you are not walking this path alone, not for one single step. The same God who held Jesus in Gethsemane is holding you right now. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead is breathing life into your circumstances even as you listen to these words. I know some of you are sitting there thinking, but what if Tuesday comes and nothing happens? What if I'm still stuck in the same situation, facing the same struggles? Let me ask you this. What if Tuesday isn't about your circumstances changing, but about you finally understanding that you have the power to change them? What if the turning point isn't in what happens to you, but in who you become through it? Right now, wherever you are, I want you to close your eyes. Feel my hand on your shoulder as I pray over your life. Father God, I stand with every person listening to this message right now. Lord, they've been carrying heavy burdens for too long. They've been walking through valleys that seemed endless. They've been knocking on doors that stayed closed, while watching others walk through openings they never even had to ask for. But God, you see them. You know their names. You've counted every tear and collected every prayer. And today, I ask you to release the breakthrough they've been waiting for. Let Tuesday be the day their faith is rewarded, their persistence is honored, and their patience is blessed. Give them supernatural strength for their Wednesday gardens. When the assignment feels too heavy and the calling seems too costly, remind them that you never give more than they can bear, and you never ask them to bear it alone. Open doors that no man can shut. Heal what doctors said couldn't be healed. Restore what others said was permanently broken. And let their lives become living testimonies of your faithfulness, your power, and your perfect timing. In Jesus' mighty name, I declare that their Tuesday turning point starts now. Amen. Listen, I need something from you before you go. In the comments below, I want you to share one thing you're believing God for this Tuesday. Don't be vague. Be specific. Be bold. Let this community know how to pray for you, because you are not meant to carry your burdens alone. And if this message touched your heart, if something shifted inside you while you were listening, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. There's someone in your life right now who's given up on their Tuesday, who thinks their moment has passed. Be the vessel God uses to remind them that it's never too late for a divine turning point. Before you leave, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This isn't just content, this is a movement of chosen ones who refuse to settle for ordinary when God has called them to extraordinary. Your subscription tells YouTube to show these messages to others who desperately need hope. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for being vulnerable, for allowing God to speak to you through these words. Your faith, your presence, your willingness to believe. It matters more than you know. Go now, chosen one. Step into your Tuesday with confidence. Walk into your turning point knowing that heaven is backing you, angels are watching, and a community of believers is praying for your breakthrough. Your moment is here. Your time is now. And Tuesday is just the beginning. Until we meet again, keep believing, keep expecting, keep watching for the hand of God to move in ways that will leave you speechless. This is your Tuesday. This is your turning point. And you, beloved, are ready for what comes next.